Some can claim that every show needs something to break the monotony. If you constantly get too much of the same thing, you will get bored of it very fast. You will always find people on Reddit asking why a specific show never gets mentioned if it's so good. And the reply is almost always the same. Because it's a one note, there is nothing to say about it. If it had drama along with comedy or downtime along with action, then you can find a lot more to talk about its polarizing elements and how they interact with each other.
Stories are usually a combination of several elements and genres, yet most of the audience tends to focus on a specific aspect. Slice-of-life stories are usually character-based. The plot is nothing much, the setting is mundane, and there are no world-shaking objectives. You are watching these stories for simple characters doing simple everyday things. Social commentaries are usually plot-based and exist on the opposite side of character-based stories. The characters are not as important as what is going on around them. They exist to serve a role and represent a concept or an ideal. This tends to make them plot devices, existing as mouthpieces for whatever the writer wants to talk about. Romances and tragedies are emotion-based stories. They often overlap with character-based, although not necessarily. There are many times the characters barely have any personality that makes them stand out from everyone else. What gives them focus is how they feel and how that resonates with the audience. Suspense and mystery are usually thrill-based stories. They tap into the allure of the unknown and make the audience anticipate what happens next by never giving it the full picture. You are never sure what is going on with characters or plot, and can only guess or stick around for answers. Sports and hobbies are usually inspiration-based stories. They motivate the audience into joining an activity, while at the same time teaching it how it works and why those in it like it so much. As I said, stories are usually not focusing on a single element, they are a combination of two or more. In fact, it's a mistake if they focus on only one, since it limits the people who will like it. Slice of life without something extra becomes slice of nothing happens, social commentaries feel like documentaries, tragedies mean nothing outside the emotional manipulation, thrill rides are just anticipation schlock based on void mystery boxes, and sports often mean nothing outside of motivating people into doing something they were probably already interested in. The more aspects a show taps into, the more people are going to follow it for having a variety of themes. That is also what makes it harder for a show to work, since it requires more effort and talent for all these different elements to mesh together without becoming a random pile of nonsense people like for how chaotic they are instead of how well they combine with each other.
This is what makes them less focused, since they are about too many things, none of which gets enough attention to really stand out.
So once again it becomes a case of quality over quantity, where quality can also be about how well the story focuses evenly amongst the different aspects.
From a purely financial standpoint, making something complicated and then leaving it unexplored is far more profitable because it keeps the fans in anticipation and it even motivates them to make up their own answers to everything the show left unanswered. Use your imagination to fill the blanks. That is what helps you think for yourself instead of accepting anything they throw at you for granted. One of the most attractive aspects of any perpetual ongoing fighting shonen is how it constantly introduces more and more characters and locations without never really doing much with them. This allows the imagination of the fans to go wild and to constantly make them think of what-if scenarios. Basically, an unexplored theme motivates the creation of fan fiction, and the variety in characters and locations allows a tremendous number of possible stories to be made, none of which can be considered wrong, since very little in canon was officially explored and explained. There are three benefits in this sort of excuse. First, the author of the story can be as lazy as he wants. No need to explore his themes because the audience will do it for him. Second, exactly because the audience is thinking makes the series pass as intellectual even if it's full of plot holes. And third, when filling the blanks with your imagination, your impression of the series becomes something unique. Every individual will have his own unique experience, which in turn makes the series more personal for bringing out your own beliefs and ideals. There are three disadvantages in this sort of excuse. First, if a theme is left unexplored, then to the most part it is going to be just a fancy theory. It won't have any actual utility because it doesn't have enough details to become plausible. Second, exactly because the audience will be thinking about something unexplored, then it easily succumbs to pretentious overthinking, meaning it is going to be pedantic about hot air. And third, when filling the blanks with one's imagination, each individual reaches to different conclusions and makes the theme to have arbitrary meanings. So basically it doesn't mean anything other than what you want it to mean, ironically not helping you think outside the box because you used your own box to fill the blanks. A fully explored and explained show has nothing left to expand upon, officially or unofficially, thus it has nothing left for artistic creativity or even for further development of its concepts. Take notice how this does not mean the show is bad or closed-minded. It only means that it's completed as far as its narrative exploration is concerned. The only thing you can do is a different show that is inspired by it, but not based on it. Of course, neither of these two styles is inherently better, since it all comes down to presentation. The difference has to do with how much buzz will be surrounding a title, depending on its complexity and vagueness. It has to do with popularity that makes some shows all known and others obscure, regardless of how their content is handled.
Add all these things together, and it's not hard to see why this sort of reasoning is not good at all. Nothing beats proper exploration.
I personally prefer it when a show is focused and leaves no loose ends just as a lazy excuse for sequels or fanfiction, but then again I'm not the type of a fan who jumps into popular stuff just because they are popular. Others may just be looking for an excuse to write a what-if story, or to plain have fun with the done-to-death stereotypes and memes that are found in any run-of-the-mill show that follows a checklist of stuff it simply needs to have in order to be as generic and vague as it can, so it can gain mass appeal exactly by lacking focus.
We often hear about size doesn't matter as much as how you use something, and up to a point that is true, skill does matter more than mass. There is though another element which makes even skill to not matter much, and that is repetition. Something not many are going to admit about martial arts is that they work best when you don't see them coming. If you are not advertising your moves or even let your opponent know that you know martial arts, then you catch him off guard and you increase your odds of a victory. Same goes with tropes and stereotypes, they work best when you don't see them coming, and the best way to not see them coming is not being fed up by seeing them all the time. That is the thing with formulaic series, they repeat themselves in such specific ways and so often that you can predict what will happen next. One of the many reasons we do not enjoy shows as much as we did before the internet era is because we have too many of them. We can binge watch them or follow dozens of them at the same time, which leads to seeing the formula of every genre way more often than we used to back when there were only a handful of TV channels and each one was airing an episode every week. This has the illusion of making you think older shows were less formulaic than newer shows. It's true to an extent since formulas are being constantly calibrated based on what sells the most, and it was much harder to make these estimates before the age of social media. Still, this feeling is magnified by repetition and in many cases ends up having the exact opposite effect than the intended one, because you know what's about to happen. You've seen it before and you don't like where it's heading. It's why I don't like things like time resets or amnesia. I know what they are doing, I see the pitfalls, and I don't like them. Which is why writing contests began having restrictions when it comes to light novels. Isekai and teenager protagonists have been saturated to the point they don't accept them anymore. Enough is enough, that shit got old a decade ago.
A lot of people have just been ticked off with Fairy Tail for a bit now. But I want to ask you something. What out of those complaints is different than what's happened from the very beginning of Fairy Tail? Everything's been the same from episode 1. Why all of a sudden now is there heat regarding the stuff that goes on in Fairy Tail?
I'm disgusted. It's disgusting and I can't believe it right now. Are you fucking joking right now? Fairy Tail, man. I can't believe this, man. I'm so disappointed. It was to be expected because look what Hiro Mashima has done with this arc. It's been proven time and time again that when it comes to Fairy Tail, the power of friendship supersedes everything. No matter how great of a villain, how strong you are, Natsu, when he cares about his friends and he's like, fuck my friends, oh! It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
For Neverworld said something stupid once again by complaining about Hiro Mashima's upcoming manga being a rehash of character designs from Fairy Tail. Which is something nobody was complaining about in the beginning of Fairy Tail for being a rehash of character designs from Rave Master. I was there and I remember everyone yelling, yeah, more Rave Master! This is related to what I said in my video about overuse working against intention, with the clarification being you have to no longer like seeing the same crap over and over again. Because trust me, there are many who consider repetition a positive trait, since they keep getting more of what they are obsessed with. For example, Mastar Media made a Dragon Ball animation by tracing and recoloring designs from pre-existing material. Something even Dragon Ball Super was doing a lot, since Toyotaro is using Toriyama's art style by tracing poses and faces. Those who love the same crap over and over again didn't mind it. Those who do complained about it. And I am not saying it's better if you keep changing everything in a sequel or a spin-off. The Last Jedi is notorious for trying to change things too much, to the point it had the same issue from the opposite side of the spectrum. Repeating the subversion of expectations so often, it ended up alienating an audience that was there mostly for the nostalgia trip. This is why everything, just like the Force, needs to have a balance. Half of it needs to be the same for reminding you of the previous entry, and half of it needs to be different just so it won't feel like a rehash.